Welcome to the Unrivaled Man podcast. So excited to have you here today, and I am very excited to have with me a special guest, Steve Shallenberger. Steve, welcome to the show.
Woo. Good to be here. Looking forward to it, Clint.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. You know, let me tell you a little bit more about Steve. Steve has more than 40 years of experience as a successful business owner, a trusted senior executive, professional corporate trainer, and a respected community leader. He has successfully led companies in 4 different industries and has a keen understanding of how to thrive in business. After graduating from Brigham Young University in 1976, he continued his education at the Harvard Business School. He's taken his lifetime of experience and founded Becoming Your Best Global Leadership, and which is a company devoted to helping individuals and organizations achieve their maximum potential. Steve, I'm so excited to have you on the show and to be able to have you share some of your wisdom with us.
Well, it's a delight to be here, Clint, and congratulations to you on the work that you're doing. I love it. I mean, unrivaled man, like that's such a cool concept, and you're blessing a lot of people, so way to go. Congratulations.
Well, Steve, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. It's been a fun little journey so far. And speaking of journeys, I'd love for our audience to hear just a little bit more about your journey and your story. How did you get here?
Yeah, well, great. I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. There were 8 of us that lived in a 900 square foot home when I was growing up. My parents were divorced when I was 14. And Vallejo is a really diverse community. I was raised in the late 60s, so I mean all kinds of stuff, really crazy things going on. Vietnam and civil rights was important. The love movement. I mean, we had it all right there. And the unfortunate, terrible assassinations of Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. So those are really crazy times.
You not to stop you here, but you lived through a lot of crazy times where today I think a lot of people are thinking, "Oh my goodness, how crazy can it get?" And you realize this has happened before, right?
Yes, well, yeah, it was worrisome. I mean, and we were in the middle of the Cold War too,
Yes.
and so yeah, it seemed crazy. I remember as a late teenager wondering, man, can we hold this whole thing together? And then really since that time, for all these decades, things have been kind of pretty reasonable and a lot of good news, except for maybe the last half a decade. And it seems like things have really returned to crazy, and it's scary right now. And so we're all in this together, and there is hope for the future, that's for sure. We can attest to the fact that we can solve problems and get to a better place. That's the hope we all have. It sometimes seems a little dismal, but I love hope. And you and I held a podcast together for Becoming Your Best just last week, or in the last few days anyhow. I loved how we ended up, which was your message, which is of having hope. And so I have a lot of hope for the future. I think I have faith in humanity. And the vast majority of people all over the world are pretty magnificent. So, well, back to my story. Growing up in that environment, I had to be a hard worker. And so I went to work and had a lot of fun jobs. I worked as a garbage man for the Vallejo, city of Vallejo. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, drive through the scariest part of town, wait in line, and hope I could get somebody's job who didn't show up that day. And I loved it, but it paid well, and man, did I learn a lot. Talk about being down in the trenches. I was there, and I also learned, later was introduced to a fellow by my grandpa, Grandpa Shallenberger. And that also is a testament that sometimes really small things can have a gigantic impact on our lives, because he introduced me to a fellow by the name of David Conger, who was a real estate broker. He owned 5 real estate offices in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he really changed my life. He taught me to read. He gave me books. The Richest Man in Babylon,
Oh, yeah.
and all kinds of these cool books that he introduced me to. He helped me start my first company at 16. And so I love it when people can have such a big impact on us like that. I had the chance to serve a mission for my church in South America. Loved learning Spanish. That was a big part of it, but also meeting those wonderful people in the nations in the deep South America, Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, and that has had a lasting impact. Came back to Brigham Young University, and one of my missionary buddies who had come back as well said, "What are you doing next summer?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go work for an accounting firm," because I was studying accounting. And he said, "How would you like to go sell Bibles down in the South this coming summer?" I
That's
said,
pretty
"I'm
cool.
in. Let's go do it."
I love it.
That was a tough job, but I made enough to pay for my next year's school, and the next year found a publishing company here. I started a marketing company, and we contracted out our services to the publishing company that was here local, who had character building books for families. I ended up having the privilege and great fortune of buying that company the next year, and we were way off to the races. Within a few years, we had 700 employees, and
Oh my God.
and they would come to me and say, "Well, how can I be a top sales rep, or how can I be a top manager?" And so this began a research for me that I thought would just take Clint a few years, ended up taking over 40 years. And what I did is that I interviewed over 175 CEOs throughout the world. What I was really looking for is what set apart high performing individuals from everybody else, and high performing teams from everybody else, because I thought there were a few things I knew, but I knew there was a ton that I did not know. And I was hoping to gain some insights. And so what we discovered from that research is that none of these leaders were really perfect, right? But we observed over and over again 12 things that they did that created the excellence. And that's what we put in the book, Becoming Your Best, the 12 Principles of Highly Successful Leaders. And we found that people anywhere can learn about those principles, apply them, and get the same kind of results. Excellence. One of the things you talked about that I loved in Unrivaled Men is that you're not comparing yourself against others. It's becoming your best. And that's kind of our thought, is that as you apply these kind of principles, you then become your best. And we certainly can learn from others, but to compare ourselves to another person, there's so much we don't know. It's just like a death kill,
Exactly.
it's a no-win game.
It
And
doesn't. It doesn't
so
get us anywhere. Yeah.
it doesn't get us anywhere. But what does get us to a great place is becoming our best. Since then, we've had the great fortune of teaching these principles all over the world to individuals, to large organizations, to small companies, to entrepreneurs, and to governments. And it is a blessing to see the results that they get because they're predictable. The principles are timeless and they're universal. Those are some of the keys that you look at, and it's just like gravity. I mean, if you don't believe me, go jump off a 35-story building and watch what happens 100 times out of 100.
Exactly.
And
Without fail.
without fail, you can count on them. That's the way each of these 12 principles are. Honesty, for example, the first one that we observed over and over is the very best leaders were true to character. They had honesty and integrity, and if you don't have that, you can kiss off all the rest of them. And so If you have somebody that's honest, uh, 100 times out of 100, there's going to be more trust. There's going to be more opportunity, more doors open to them. But if someone is sneaky and dishonest or tries to trick people or pressure them, into doing things that they don't feel comfortable with, 100 times out of 100, it doesn't work well. Trust goes down, doors are closed. People don't want to work with this kind of a person.
It's,
And so,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
I was
please.
just going to say, it just reminded me of what you said earlier a little bit. You were just saying, you were talking about um, how the leaders that you interviewed, those CEOs, those leaders that had all of that success, they weren't perfect.
Yeah,
But what I believe is, and this is probably what I mean, this is a lot of your premise is that, but they were honest, I imagine. Because in order to have that level of success, you'd have to be honest and have some of these other principles. Because as long as you're honest, people will give you the benefit of the doubt when you mess up, when you're not perfect, and when they know that you're straightforward with them. Anyway, that just kind of stuck in my mind a little bit, just thinking about, it doesn't mean you're perfect. It just means we're on that path toward doing our best, and honesty is a good first step. So
yeah, you're spot on both points, Clint. That's a great observation that you just made. As people will cut you slack, and as you're trying, but highly successful leaders, people can count on.
yep.
And they go to great lengths to be honest and straightforward and have clarity. They're not perfect, but people learn to trust them.
Hmm.
So you're spot on that. Good job. Well, anyhow, so that's been a great journey. We've written a few more books since then as we've worked with clients and discovered areas maybe that they may need a little more help in, particularly how to prioritize their time. That's a big deal for people, to be good time managers. So we wrote a book called Do What Matters Most. And it's actually going deeper on 3 of the 12 principles that helps people master them. In other words, here's the how of this, the why, and then here's how you do it. And so that's been fun. We've had a great time. It's opened up so much opportunity. And I love seeing people be able to apply them just like you do. So privileged and honored to be with you today on Unrivaled Men, because the type of people that are tuning into this today are those kind of people. People just trying to be the best they can be, to do better, to be unrivaled in their own life. And that seems to have an impact across the board, because these principles aren't just isolated for business or organizations or leadership in that respect, but also in our personal life and in our relationships. And as you apply them, you're able to become excellent in each of these areas. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's like anything else, like in a sport, it takes practice. Leadership takes practice. If you're going to be good in soccer or baseball or football or whatever it is, pickleball. I'm loving pickleball, but dang it, there's no shortcuts.
Exactly.
You just got to learn the rules and practice until you finally are consistent. And then one day you wake up and all of a sudden somehow it's in your DNA. It's a lot easier to do it. So
Yeah.
I would say that's my story. I've been blessed to have a great wife, and we've had 6 children, 21 grandchildren. My wife suffered from early onset Alzheimer's about 8 or 9 years ago, and went through that terrible disease. And she passed away a year and a half ago from that. So I'm working to apply these principles today. They work as we try to be good fathers and companions and have big challenges in life. I don't think any of you or me or our listeners are spared from challenges, and sometimes they get really tough. But as you apply these principles, it does give us hope. It gives us a way forward. And so that's where I'm at. I'm like everybody else, just working on becoming my best in the way I can, and it's been great. So that gives you a little background, and so I'm feeling excited about life. I'm excited to wake up and have it and participate. So I'm living and loving life right now.
See, I love it. I love it. I love what you shared there. How the principles that you discuss in your book, and really they do transcend all times of life. Because I think what happens is so often, as well, really as humans, we keep looking forward, thinking someday when the X happens, then I'll be happy, right? We may not say it quite those terms in our mind, but that's often what we're thinking. Oh, I just can't wait until this is done, or this is over with, or this thing has happened. And just like you've shared, which I really appreciated, is this is life. This is what happens. We continue to have hard things that can happen, but man, there are ways that we can overcome them and become better and better, even amidst all the challenges that come our way.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I want to ask you, both of us. So both of us have 6 kids, in fact, which is kind of fun. So my question for you is: a lot of the people here, well, a lot of our listeners have children, right? A lot of them are fathers. And how did you help teach your children these type of principles earlier in life?
Well, first of
I
all,
mean,
you
you work
gotta.
with one of your sons, right? At this point, right?
Oh yeah, I work with a couple of them and
Yeah.
really close with all 6 of them. I'm certainly not perfect by any means, but we are all 6 really close, and it is nice to see them prospering. Well, I think the first thing for me that was helpful is just trying to do the best I could in setting a good example. So, for example, everybody's different. You have your own things, but I didn't want to have my children hear me swear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how that got into my head. And so it did happen twice. And so they had a standing rule. One is I was a football coach when one of our kids was in 8th or 9th grade. I was the coach. We had this great team. I said, I'm not going to swear as a coach. And if I ever swear, I'll pay each one of you a quarter for every word. And so we made it through 2/3 of the season. In one practice, one of the players just kept running the play wrong. And finally, I just said, damn, get it right. And my son's out there, and everything stopped. Everything went stone quiet. They looked and they said, Coach, you owe us a quarter. Oh man, I felt so bad. But anyhow, the next practice, I brought a roll of quarters, and one other time when I was golfing. So these are things. Looks like sports can bring it out in us.
Yes.
Farmers and ranchers, we cut them some slack. If you're working with animals, swearing's part of that world.
Oh man. But
Maybe
I love
computer.
But I love your example, though. I love what you did in the end, because not only did you teach your kids, hey, I'm going to stand for something, right? What you chose, and that was individual to you, right? Hey, this is what I'm going to stand for. And you held yourself to it. And I love the example of you bringing the roll of quarters, just to say, look, I'm sticking to my commitment. So you taught them a couple other things there, I think. So.
Yeah, and they know I'm human, and it was a lot of fun, and they saw that. The other is you do working to find harmony as being a parent and in your companionship and professionally. Sometimes these worlds definitely can come together. And so my office was maybe 10 minutes from my home, and it was a large building. One of the companies was a printing company, so we had printing presses. We had, of course, employee rooms. So I'd take my kids down at night sometimes into this building. And everybody's gone. I'm working in my office, but they are having the time of their life. They are raiding the candy machine. So they're learning how to get things out of the vending machine, and I'm going to have to pay for these, I know. Well, they were ours anyhow, but so they'd come back with, their pockets bulging with candy. And then they would play hide and seek in this building. but we spent a lot of time together as well. And they knew what Dad did. So it's bringing the worlds together. Today, now, you fast forward 20 and 30 years, then there were 5 and, 8, 10, 12. Those are some of the fondest memories they have. They look back. Those are some of the things they think about. Playing hide and seek, and they'd get on the intercom where there are speakers all over the building. Try to scare each other. So fun times. I think, and I think fun times, that's another key word, is create a lot of fun times. We played a lot of family football games. Generally, a couple of our children, and we knew who they were, would be ejected from the games.
Oh,
We still have pictures of them walking down the driveway back to the house because they got kicked out of the game. But we laugh so hard at that now. And we have a wonderful daughter that ended up playing Division I soccer, so she was pretty competitive. She was the youngest. We had 5 boys and a girl. When she was like 5 years old, if she did not score every single touch of the football, she would get so ticked off, she'd turn around and chuck the football in the rose bushes and stomp off.
oh my goodness. She's a competitor.
Yeah, but these are happy, fun memories that bring families together, and they learn to play by the rules. I think something else, and we did every single week, we had a family meeting. And we would talk about our family goals. We had a family vision statement. They all participated. I said, we're going to do a family vision, and how do you all see it? Now, this is any age. You can participate in, but as the leader, the father and mother or partnership or significant others, whatever, you take the lead on it. And so I said, how would you describe it? What are the words? And they'd all turn it in, and I would wordsmith it, but that's what our final one turned out to be. And part of the family vision is we don't spit or scare each other.
I love it.
So can't spit on one another.
That's-
Okay, great.
That's
They get it.
important
That's a
for family
rule.
love.
And they used to hide before. They'd hide behind the door, and when you're getting close, they'd jump out and scare you. I mean, for heaven's sakes. And then, besides the family meeting, we did have daily, and this is a great credit to my wife. Every morning we would read the scriptures together, and not much, and we weren't sure if they were paying attention sometimes. Particularly the daughter had 6 cereal boxes, a fort built around her, her bowl. And she didn't want to see anybody that early, but when it came her time to read the 1 or 2 verses, she'd read them, and grumpily maybe sometimes, but it went on. The fact is, we didn't know if it did any good, but it stuck. These little things have impacts. And maybe the last one is I paid the boys and Ann to read good books. So I'd say, if you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, I'll give you $50. And I said, oh man, we're in, sure. I said, all you gotta do is write a 1-page book report and go over it with me, tell me what you learned. So we've done that with, maybe 10 books, 10 really key books. And that seems to help. So I don't know. And those are a few ideas.
I love it. Those are great actionable ideas. I love it. Like I said, I'm sure somebody's listening will either take one of those or modify it to fit their situation.
So let me add one other, and it's every child, of course, as every parent knows,
Yes.
is different. And some don't take a great deal of effort. Others may take more effort. And one of our sons, they got a ski pass when they're kind of mid-late teens, like 16, 15, 16. And so I got a call from the school one day saying, your son has not been to school for 6 weeks.
My goodness.
I said, well, it'd been nice if you'd have called me like he hasn't been there for 2 days, right?
Exactly.
What do you mean 6 weeks? So he came home from school that day and I said, hey, how'd school go today, son? He said, oh, Dad, he said, it was awesome. So good. And I said, well, I said, that's interesting. I said, because the school called and said you haven't been there for 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, he knew he was busted, and I said, "Give me the ski pass. I want the ski pass right now." And then we sat down and talked about it. But in order to help him get back on track, I asked the principal if I could meet with all 7 of his teachers. He was in high school,
Yeah.
and I proposed to them that if he goes to school for the rest of the next 3 weeks, doesn't miss a thing, fulfills all of assignments, would you give him a D?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so they all looked around and they all agreed. One teacher was reluctant. And so I talked with this child and I said, are you up for this? He said, yeah. I said, okay, they're all in. And he did it. And this was life changing. In one of the classes, the math teacher required me to sit behind him for a week.
Oh my
So I went to school and sat behind him.
goodness. Wow.
I mean, everybody's looking around saying, who is this guy in our class? Oh, it's so-and-so's dad.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
this kind of changed everything for him. And then he went to a big 4th of July celebration in our community called the Stadium of Fire. And it's part of the America's Freedom Festival. And there's 45,000 people in this stadium and a big concert. And it starts with a flyover at that time of 4 F-16s. And that day, he looked at his brother and he said, someday you and I are going to fly those jets over this stadium. And they captured a vision that changed both of their lives, because that's exactly what happened 14 years later.
Oh my goodness.
They received permission. They both became fighter pilots in the United States Air Force, F-16 pilots. And they got permission from the Pentagon to be in the same formation, and they had permission to do the flyover, piloting 2 of those 4 jets. And it's a testament to any one of us. When you capture a vision, an idea, it can change your whole life. And this is what happened to our kids, and particularly that son that was struggling. Because now with that vision that came from within, he knew he had to be successful in high school.
Yes.
And he had to get good grades. And he had to go to college and get good grades.
Yeah,
And that's exactly.
fly those planes. Oh my
Yeah. And so that's what he did. They both became extraordinary pilots, a great blessing to our country, and they'd flown many missions. Anyhow, that's what parents do. They just get as creative as they can. They can't get mad. It doesn't help to yell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've probably taken away privileges. I don't remember restricting my kids a lot, but they certainly had rules to follow. And if they didn't, we're going to visit about it. And then you need to be there right with them. You need to sit behind them in math class sometimes. And that's it.
That. Oh my goodness. Well, the thing that just keeps coming through my mind as you were sharing some of those. First off, thinking of my own children and my own situation, and I have I have quite a few young children and going all the way up. So we're right in the thick of all of this, and I love some of the. I'm taking notes here. These are some great words of wisdom. But what's also making me think is it's taking me back to some of my times with some of my employees. And some of the experiences I've had trying to work through situations with people that aren't performing for one reason or another. And some of the things that you talked about and some of the principles that you shared really just started making me think about those situations as well. And just when you talk about how the principles are true across all parts of life, there is so much truth to that, because so many of these things and the way that we treat people and connect with people, it seems to just overlap right over into managing employees as well.
Yep. You're spot on. I'm so glad you made that connection, Clint. Good job.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing. Well, goodness. Well, Steve, we are getting to the end of our time here, and I just wanted to see, as with all of the different things you've done, the different experiences you've had, what would be the top action step that you would give to my listeners? Knowing my audience, what would you have them do in their life to make the biggest impact on them?
Well, I've got to say, I want to just say that if you invest in the book, Becoming Your Best, the 12 Principles of Highly Successful Leaders, I'm not trying to promote it. It's not even about the money, but I can just tell you, I've seen the power of the principles so much. I think it's a great start, and it really aligns with what Clint teaches in Unrivaled Man as well. But if you get these from different points of view, they have lasting, powerful impacts in your life. And this is a fun book because it has lots of stories that helps teach you how to do it. And we have so much in common in trying to create this excellence. And Clint did a wonderful job in just connecting this to our professional lives, because we all have challenges with trying to bring the best out in our employees and our organizations. And we can do it. It just takes creativity. One of the principles is live the golden rule in business and in life. That's one of the things I saw highly successful leaders do. And that sometimes is different than someone that's shouting at you or, not very respectful. But when you care, your employees know. And so do the other people around you. So I think if you invest in that book and don't like it, let Clint know and he'll refund you your money.
You better believe it.
I'm just joking. I will refund the money. That's a Shallenberger guarantee. But I think that's the first one. You do that and you take it from there. I already know you're an amazing group of people that's listening in, but that has most of it. That would be my recommendation. They're great principles, by the way. Every single one is inspirational, and you feel it the minute you read it. You can tell that it's right. So I think that's it. Those are pretty good ones.
I love it. Well, thank you. Yes, I'm going to put links to your books in the show notes to make sure people can easily find it. So you can go ahead and just go right to the show notes, and it'll take you to a link where you can get the books. So many wonderful things you can do. I love all of the stories and the experience, and not just your experiences, but like you said, experiences from successful leaders all over the world. And these principles can change your life, starting with what we've talked about: getting a vision and being honest, and some of these amazing things. This has been a great discussion today. I sure appreciate you coming on the show, Steve, and taking your time to be with us.
Okay, well, good luck on what you're doing. I admire it so much. What a inspirational example you are, and you have so much experience from running companies and your own family, and you have such a good attitude. So, I just love your spirit. I appreciate you and what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Been a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you. And to all of you out there listening today, thanks for joining us. You have so many wonderful things that you can go and do right in front of you today. So now it is your turn to go and be the unrivaled man in your life.